Right, kia ora and welcome back. Still no turn up from the people who requested a tutorial, but that's all right, I'm not offended. So I just wanted to break up the discussion of ADS and unemployment to deal with the model and then shifts of the curves and thinking about unemployment. So one thing that I'll just start with before we move any further, just to tidy this up a bit here, okay, is the equation, because that's quite helpful, is that red line, hopefully you can see the red line, and that is YF. So when we draw the ADS model and we're looking at unemployment and what causes it to go up or down, and whether it goes up or down, we need the YF line, and the YF line represents full output. Okay, so I'll put here YF equals full output. For those of you who remember when we did the business cycle, and I showed you that, like this is the business cycle here, there's like a line that can go like this, that's potential output. It's the same idea. What it's meaning is it's saying every country, when you think about all the resources they have, all the technology they have access straight away, so think about how many people they have, how much land, that type of stuff, there is a limit to how much they can potentially produce. So you can call it potential output or full output. The other thing that you can call it is productive capacity, which you see on a PPF model or a PPC model, whether Frontier or Curvis is a country's productive capacity. So we call it full output, and sometimes another name for it is full employment. Right? It's just saying, okay, this is your output, at some point there is a limit, all right, and that limit is YF. What you can see is that when YF is on the ADS model, we're usually out here, because usually countries are not at YF, they're in front of it. It's close to where AS starts to become really steep. So if you look at these curves here, AD slopes down, showing that as the price level falls, people tend to spend more. Why? Because at lower prices you have higher purchasing power. And it's steeper here, these like lower levels of output here, because when the price level is higher, people can't afford to buy as much because their money doesn't go as far, their purchasing power is lower, so the amount that they spend, they buy, is less. All right, so that's AD. AS is a little bit different, that it tends to show, it's quite flat here, and that's showing that at low, sort of like where it's flat, what you can see is that if we were to increase our output, say there's like a massive increase in demand and producers needed to increase production to meet that demand, they'd be able to do it with a fairly large increase in output, but a small increase in the price level. This is a little bit complicated, but it goes back to the business cycle. So I'm not going to fully show it, it's in your workbook, so I'd have a look there. The idea is that at the flat level of AS, where it's kind of flat, you can increase your output quite a lot without gaining a large increase in like costs and price, because you have a lot of spare capacity. When we're here, we have a lot of unemployment, we have a lot of people who could be working, we have a lot of idle resources like land, capital, that can easily be switched into production and then can increase production with a little increase in price. You don't have to, if people are unemployed, you don't need to pay them that much to get them to come work. There's like heaps of competition, so they'll be like, oh, we'll work for you, that's fine. Here though, when we get to the steep part of AS, there is less capacity in the economy. Unemployment is really low, and there's not a lot of spare resources. Most land will be like fully used, capital is fully used or close to. So if you were to increase your output because you've got a heap of demand, you can only do that by getting a very large increase in the price level to reflect the fact that you have quite high costs when you're at the steep part of AS. And in the long run, AS becomes completely vertical, and think about that YF line. When it becomes completely vertical, that means you've reached your full output level. There's no more that you can produce. You can keep on throwing money at someone, but they can't produce more than their capacity. So that's just a bit of a rundown to the two curves, and then we have YF. So let's jump into unemployment, and let's also look at what causes these curves to go up and down, to increase or decrease, and how that affects unemployment. So first thing, before I forget and continue on, where's unemployment here? Remember, I said that output can also measure employment and income. So if YF is our full level of output, that would also mean that all our resources are fully utilised. That would also be full employment. So if your full employment level is here, and your economy is operating at Y, that means you're not using all your resources. you have a gap here, the difference between YF minus Y, and that is unemployment. Okay, so I'll call that unemployment. There is another name for this. It can be called it's an output gap, so it's a gap in output. In this case, it's a negative output gap. We often call this a recessionary gap, meaning that, like in a recession when we did the business cycle, that's when there is more, you're not producing like the maximum that you could be, you're producing less than your maximum, you're inside your PPF model, your PPC model, all right? So there's fair resources that could be used, not everybody's been utilised, and you're not reaching the limits of your production. So that any time you're not doing that, which is pretty much always, you have a recessionary gap, all right? I don't think you need to worry about that too much for now. We can talk about it when we get to inflation. The key thing you want to understand is that an economy is operating at output level, and that's where AS equals AD, that's your output level, current, and it's in front of YF, okay? So it's here, and YF is there, you have unemployment. You're not using all your resources, so therefore we say that there is unemployment. So let's have a look at what can cause that gap to get smaller. And when the gap gets smaller, okay, so we start moving here. Okay, this isn't going to move, like your full potential, you're not going to get, that's not going to change unless you get more people, you get more land, you get more resources. So let's just assume that you've only got a limited amount of resources, that's not changing. So YF isn't going to change, so what you need to change is you need to increase Y. All right, to increase Y, we need to either increase the AS curve, all right, and what that would look like is this. I'll just draw it here. So if we had AS increasing, AS, it would shift out to your left, okay? So shifting out to the left. Here's 0, here's Y. So if it's shifting out to the left, then AS increasing. And you would just label the new curve AS1. So it's interesting that we have the factors of aggregate supply here. So what could cause this? Your costs go down. All right, it doesn't cost you as much to produce. Maybe you've got some cool new suppliers who are able to give you your materials for cheaper than before. Maybe you've got some new fancy technology that's enabled your firm's productivity to increase, so your workers are able to produce more at a lower cost. Maybe you have an absolute fantastic weather and you're able to produce a lot more, like you're doing with your farmer. The amount that your farm normally produces, the yield, is way higher because you had like good rain, good weather, and now you're producing more than say last year, yet you didn't actually like add more sheep or grain or stuff like that. It could be to do with trade. It could be that the government signed a free trade deal. They've negotiated better terms, particularly in terms of your suppliers. These are all possible. The biggest one that normally causes AS to increase is cost of production. Our firm's costs decrease. That could be really specific raw materials. Wages don't generally go down, so I wouldn't pick that, but I would think, things like electricity, petrol is a really big cost, particularly for transport, oil, plastics. Oil's involved in a lot of production. So if the cost of that goes down, then we could expect that AS would increase. GST, if it was removed or decreased, that would also cause AS to increase. All right, so if you're looking at an increase in AS, key thing is that we shift the curve out to the left, okay, and that is going to lead to Y increasing. You would know that that would probably cause the price level to decrease, and you'd be correct. If you think about it, if you've got more available, so more supply, then prices fall, right? Because there's less of a shortage. Prices have to fall, otherwise you'd have a surplus in the economy, all right? So that's a little thing to remember. On the other hand, if we look at, say, aggregate demand, all right, then we're asked, that's not aggregate demand, it's aggregate supply, sorry. AD looks like that. I'm thinking, what is she doing? So here's our Y, we want it to increase. Here's the price level, that's not too important here. We're like, we need to increase Y, we need to increase AD. Again, AD would shift out to the right, just like so. So AD to AD1, or if you're using a different labeling system, that's fine, but do show an arrow, the direction, and also some sort of indication that that's a new AD curve. So what will cause AD to increase? Well, this is where this little equation is really cool and really helpful. We know that AD equals C plus I plus G, you just remember this, plus X, that's terrible, X minus N. So if I'm asking myself what could cause aggregate demand to increase, well, it could be from an increase in household consumption. Households are consuming more. Why? I don't know. Maybe they've got some more income. Maybe the government gave them a tax cut. Maybe they got an increase in unemployment benefits. Maybe we've just held the Rugby World Cup and now, or the America's Cup, and everyone's got more jobs and they've negotiated higher wages, so they've got more income and they can spend more. Maybe they're just feeling really happy and things are really awesome, so they're just not worried about the future, so they're just spending at large. There can be a lot of reasons why household consumption increases. It is quite, it can be a bit volatile, it does sort of rely on a lot of things. But if household consumption was increasing, ceteris paribus, it doesn't matter what everything else is doing. This is a huge part of our total expenditure, right? AD is total expenditure. Household consumption makes up like 60% of our economy's total expenditure. So if consumption increases, it's pretty much following on that AD's increased. The only reason it wouldn't is if everything else decreased. It's a mathematical equation. If this increases and these will stay constant, AD increases. Okay, it could be that consumption hasn't changed. Maybe firms are investing more, so they're buying more capital goods, they're building like factories, they're putting in new like software, laptops and things like that, so capital, taking out loans for capital, they're doing more of it. Usually business confidence is high. When you hear statistics like that quoted, we see an increase in investment. It could be that the government's decided to cut company tax, so firms are like, well, cool, I'll get to keep more of the profit I make if I carry out investment, so I'll do some investment. There's a research and development tax credit that the government's currently offering. So that's another thing, by offering like some of your tax back if you do research and development, that's investment. So therefore investment would increase. If that increased and everything else stayed constant, AD would increase. All right, government spending. The government has a surplus this year. If they decide to spend all of that surplus and spend more than say the year before, so their government spending increases, we call that expansionary fiscal policy, then G increases and these will stay constant, then AD would increase. Over here, what you want to see to happen to get AD increasing is we want export receipts to increase. Remember, export receipts is an injection and import payments is a leakage. So to get net exports, which is what X minus M is, all right, I'll write that here, this equals net exports. What we need to see is we need to earn more export receipts. So we need to sell more exports to people overseas. And ideally, we want to not buy any imports whatsoever. That's not going to happen. That's called mercantilism. But we'd like to either spend less on imports or certainly not spend more. So it's kind of like import payments, maybe like to stay the same, increase a tiny bit, or even go down. That would be awesome, because that means we would earn more as a country. More people would spend on our stuff than we would pay on theirs. And that means that net exports would increase, which then leads to aggregate demand increasing. Now, in terms of what causes each of these variables to increase, you've got a whole raft of scenarios and situations. Interest rates is one. Interest rates can cause C and I and X minus M to increase. So these things that actually can cause more than one variable to increase. Business confidence is investment, consumer confidence is C. The exchange rate's really important, as are free trade agreements for X and M. What happens for one can actually influence other variables as well. So it's a matter for you to sort of see scenarios and think, oh, will this increase consumption? Will this increase investment? And try and argue your way through economics. What the key point is that if you get an increase in AD or an increase in AS, Y is going to increase. So if I just did this, like so, there's a new AD curve, and I trace down where the new equilibrium is, and it just happens to be here. Right? There is also a higher price level. We're not really talking about inflation right now, but that just means that you have increased your output, but at the same time, prices in the economy have also risen. And because this is demand, it makes sense. There's more demand in the economy. If the price level didn't rise, we'd have shortages. But hey, key thing that we're looking at here is what's going on here. The gap between YF and Y has now got smaller. So unemployment has gone lower. All right, it was here in the blue, unemployment, and now it is here, right? So here to here. So the gap between YF and Y has got Y1 is smaller than the gap between YF and Y. Therefore, unemployment has reduced because either AD or AS has increased. I just showed you AD, all right? So I recommend you have a look at your workbook and have a look at what causes AD or AS to increase. Decrease, you could be looking at unemployment getting worse, all right? So have a look at this and let me know if you have any questions, okay? Next, the labour market.